Rappler as a cheap and quick snack. Malacanang expressed concern on Thursday over a Chinese warship's unauthorized passage through Cebu Strait in the waters of Tawi-Tawi, despite China's assurance to maintain friendly ties with the Philippines. The passage of a Chinese warship in the Philippine waters came following Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Zhao Jinhua's earlier commitment that the Chinese government would seek the permission of the Philippine government first. Panelo said if proven that there is a violation in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea or UNCLOS, the government will file another diplomatic protest.
We express concern with that kind of incident, because if they keep on saying that we're friends, I don't think this is an act of friendship. Baka it's a violation of the UNCLOS. Violation ng UNCLOS yan kung dumaraan sa ating EEZ. I'm sure the DFA secretary will do something about that.
He echoed the position of Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana, who asked China to explain the presence of warships in the Philippine waters. He also agreed with Lorenzana that China's consistent driving away Filipino fishermen within the Philippine exclusive economic zone could be considered an act of bullying.
Gaya ng posisyon ng ating Secretary of National Defense. We don't like that. And pag na-verify mo na naman yun, another subject of diplomatic protest by the DFA.
Asked if President Rodrigo Duterte would bring up the presence of Chinese warships in Philippine waters during his upcoming meeting with President Xi Jinping of China, Panelo said it will be the chief executive's call. Panelo meanwhile said he will call the attention of the Chinese government over its warships' passage in Philippine waters when he meets Zhao for a working dinner.
Then we will call their attention. We'll call their attention. The Chinese ambassadors invited me for dinner one of these days, and maybe I will raise that. And I will ask him kung ano nangyari dun sa... Kasi I remember Secretary Delfin was quoting him, di ba? Na, that's wrong. We're friends.
Following Zhao's recent statement that China's position not recognizing the arbitral ruling remains unchanged, Panelo said he told Zhao via text message that the Philippines stand also remains. Panelo, however, is hopeful that bilateral negotiations would still help resolve the sea dispute between the Philippines and China.
And neither are we changing our position too. But it doesn't mean that as friends we cannot discuss that issue. It has to be discussed. That is precisely why there is a mechanism for negotiation. There are things we can agree upon, there are differences that we may not, but that does not preclude both countries to raise that issue and discuss amicably.
Quoting the president, Panelo said nobody could stop the chief executive from saying what he wants to say.
He will not alter his position on the matter in the same way that the Chinese government, as it says. But what is important is, as he promised the Filipino people, he will raise that issue at the proper time. And he said, this is the time.
On July 12, 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration, or PCA, released its verdict on the Philippines arbitration case filed against China in 2013, nullifying China's 9-line claims of nearly the entire West Philippine Sea or South China Sea, including part of the Philippines' EEZ. The PCA concluded that there was no legal basis for China to claim historic rights to resources within the sea areas falling within the 9-line, but China refused to recognize this. A Franco-Irish teen who disappeared from a Malaysian resort likely starved and died of internal bleeding after about a week in the jungle with no immediate sign of foul play, police said Thursday. There was no indication that 15-year-old Nora Koireen, who had learning difficulties, was abducted or sexually assaulted, they said, announcing the results of an autopsy. However, the lawyer of her family, who believes she may have been abducted, said it was too early to rule out a criminal element in the case. Her unclothed body was discovered Tuesday in a ravine in dense jungle following a 10-day hunt involving hundreds of people, helicopters, and sniffer dogs. She went missing from the Dusun resort not far from Kuala Lumpur on August 4, a day after checking in for a holiday with her London-based family. Speaking after the post-mortem examination, Negeri Sembilan State Police Chief Muhammad Mats Yusuf told reporters the teen suffered bleeding in her intestines due to not eating as well as extreme stress. The schoolgirl is believed to have died 2 to 3 days before her body was found. He said for a time being there is no suspicion of foul play. There were some scratches on her body after days in the rainforest, but nothing suspicious. He adds the parents can claim her body.
Punca kematian sebenar adalah disebabkan kebocoran pada usus intestin, ya. Intestin telah bocor mungkin disebabkan oleh kerana tidak ada makanan dalam tempoh yang panjang, dan mayat Nora itu telah dijangkakan meninggal atau mati lebih kurang 2 hingga 3 hari. Not more than 4 days, 2 hingga 3 hari, dan tidak ada kesan ataupun tanda yang dianya dirogol, tidak ada. Hymen still intact, cala-cala kecil, luka kecil di kaki ada sedikit, tapi itu tidak menjurus ke arah boleh menyebabkan kematian pada mangsa. For the time being, there is no element of abduction or kidnapping.
At least 14 people have been killed in ongoing fighting Thursday between Myanmar's military and rebels who mounted a series of attacks, including an unprecedented strike on an army academy, apparently in retaliation for massive drug seizures. Ethnic armed rebel groups have for decades fought against the military and often between themselves for land and resources in Myanmar's east. Experts say the area is now the world's largest meth-producing region, funding the complex web of conflicts. Thursday's brazen assault targeted Pien U Luin, a tourist town near Mandalay that is also home to barracks teeming with soldiers receiving training. An reporter at a police post the site of one of the attacks counted the bodies of 7 soldiers and 4 policemen. Military spokesman Brigadier General Zhao Min-tun told media 3 more people, 2 soldiers and 1 civilian, had been killed and that fighting was still ongoing. This brings the death toll to at least 14. One of the 5 attacks targeted the town's Defense Service Technology Academy, where military engineers are trained, the first ever time the training center has been hit. The military said rebels had fired 107 rockets at the academy from a nearby hillside. Images from local media showing burned out cars and damaged buildings showered in debris. The Taung National Liberation Army claimed the attacks, saying they had acted in retaliation. TNLA spokesman Major Mai Ai Kiao confirmed the attacks were coordinated with the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army and Arakan Army. The AA is still currently fighting the military or Tatmadaw in conflict-scarred western Rakhine state, but is in a tight alliance with the other rebel groups. Malacanang reiterated on Thursday President Rodrigo Duterte's coverage ban on news site Rappler does not violate any law, describing covering the palace as a privilege, not a right. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo said despite the ban, Rappler still has access to regular palace briefings, which are live-streamed and televised, signed laws and other important documents needed to write their news reports.
I think the basis is that it's a privilege. It's a privilege, not a right. And there is no violation simply because one, or the Rappler is not being stopped from writing stories, even against the government, as it is wont to do. It is not prohibited from publishing what it writes. So how can there be prior restraint or violation of press freedom?
Panelo, who is also chief presidential legal counsel, cited the example of banning coverage of a reporter who is a member of the Malacanang Press Corps when he or she breaks the rules that need to be observed.
Like, for instance, you're supposed to be MPC, di ba? And there are certain rules that you have also to observe as guests of the palace. Eh, pag you violate that, maging rude kayo, disrespectful, o di siyempre, it's the right of the palace to either reprimand you or to exclude you. Kasi you have to observe courtesies, decorum, respect.
Panelo, meanwhile, said he will leave it to Solicitor General Jose Calida to respond to Rappler's petition before the Supreme Court, asking the government to submit reply 10 days after August 14. The ban on Rappler started in February 2018 after the Securities and Exchange Commission said the media outlet violated the Constitution's restriction on foreign ownership of local media. Rappler has denied this claim and said it is Filipino-owned. President Duterte earlier said Rappler's reporters would be allowed to cover his events again if the SEC would declare Rappler a 100% Filipino-owned online news outfit. In April, Rappler filed a petition for certiorari before the Supreme Court to strike down the ban on presidential coverage imposed on it, claiming that it violates its press freedom and rights to free speech, equal protection, and due process.
Is our most important asset, and it should always be a constant effort to seek ways to take care of it. That includes professional medical help from the best available. The Manila-Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated is known as one of the most specialized centers in medical services, backed by several experienced physicians in Chinese medicine. At an accuracy rate of 98%, countless patients who visited Manila-Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated have already been treated and cured.
Marami po ospital na napuntahan, pero wala rin nangyayari. Somebody introduced me to Manila-Beijing Medical Associated. After 2 treatments, gumanda ang pakiramdam ko.
My friends introduced me Manila-Beijing Medical Associated, and luckily, I got cured. So I sincerely want to thank the doctors of Manila-Beijing Medical Associated.
For the past 30 years, ang dami ko lang na-take na mga gamot, nothing happened to me. So until one my friend introduced me to Manila-Beijing Medical Associated, you know what? All my illness was cured.
For any health problems or incurable diseases, you can visit Manila-Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated, located at 843B Sabino Padilla Street, Binondo, Manila.
Welcome back. There is no need to impose a ban on the deployment of overseas Filipino workers to Hong Kong for now, the Department of Labor and Employment said on Thursday. With this, DOLE Secretary Silvestre Bello III noted that they have yet to receive a recommendation from the Department of Foreign Affairs regarding the situation in the island. He added that the Philippine Overseas Labor Office is closely monitoring the situation in the Chinese territory. Bello also directed labor officials there to provide him with a periodic report on the situation should tension escalate. At the same time, he advised OFWs to stay indoors and avoid going to areas where protests are happening. Likewise, he discouraged the Filipinos from wearing white or black shirts while on the streets to avoid being mistaken as protesters and prevent untoward incidents. Earlier, Bello urged OFWs there to respect curfew of the host country and also to refrain from going out after finishing their work. The protest actions in the former British colony have affected the arrival and departure at the Hong Kong International Airport as thousands of protesters have entered the facility, thus affecting its operations. The protest stemmed from a bill that would allow extraditions to mainland China. Majority of Filipino workers in Hong Kong are household service workers. The country's fisheries output in the second quarter grew slightly to 1.139 million metric tons from 1.134 MMT recorded last year, the Philippine Statistics Authority said in a report. The PSA report, which was published recently, read across the three subsectors production from commercial fisheries and aquaculture showed decreases of 2.4% and 0.3% respectively, adding municipal fisheries production exhibited an increase of 4.3%. The PSA said commercial fisheries output reached 280,810 metric tons, lower than the 287,680 MT recorded in the April to June period last year. Data from the PSA indicated that commercial fisheries production accounted for 24.6% of total fisheries output. Municipal fisheries output fell by 4.3% to 309,860 MT from 297,050 MT last year, according to the PSA. The subsector contributed 27.2% to total fisheries production. The report read of its total production, 87.2% came from marine municipal fisheries, while the rest were from inland fisheries. Marine fisheries output reached 270,174.66 MT, 5.18% higher than the 256,858 MT recorded in the second quarter of last year, as showed by the PSA. The remaining volume of municipal fisheries output were from inland fisheries, which reached 39,687 MT, 1.26% lower than last year's record of 40,194 MT. The report read during the second quarter of 2019, total aquaculture production was estimated at 548,390 metric tons. It was 0.3% lower than the output during the same period of previous year of 550,010 metric tons. It added the subsector contributed the biggest share of 48.1% to the total fisheries production in the second quarter of 2019. At current prices, the value of fisheries production at 74.7 billion pesos was 9.42% more in the second quarter of 2019, the PSA said in a recent report on the performance of the agriculture sector. In the first 6 months of the year, the PSA said fisheries output was up by 1.51%. Fears for another recession of the U.S. economy made investors risk-averse, resulting in the weakening of the peso and the negative close of the Philippine Stock Exchange Index on Thursday. The local currency ended the day at 52.498 from the 52.28 close on Wednesday. In its market report, BPI Research traced the weakening to reports that the German economy posted zero growth as measured by gross domestic product in the second quarter this year. Other factors are in the 17-year low industrial output of the Chinese economy last July, which grew 4.8% year-on-year, and the weaker than expected retail sales growth of or 7.6% last July. The report said these data affected investors' sentiment, resulting in brief decline of the 10-year U.S. Treasury yields, lower than the 2-year securities for the first time since 2007. The report said the peso depreciated as a potential U.S. recession pushed investors towards risk aversion. With concerns on the global economy further rising, the peso opened the day at 52.35 from the previous day's 52.1. It traded between 52.35 and 52.62, bringing the day's average to 52.519. Volume reached $1.66 billion US dollars, up from the previous day's $1.27 billion US dollars. The currency pair is seen to trade between 52.35 and 52.60 on Friday. Meanwhile, the main equities index shed 0.38% or 29.79 points to 7,828.86 points. All shares contracted by 0.47% or 22.57 points to 4,746.35 points. Almost all the sectoral indices also ended in the red, except the holding firm, which rose 0.63%. Mining and oil posted the biggest decline with 1.92%, followed by the services 1.23%, financials 1.13%, property 1.11%, and industrial 0.64%. Volume reached 788.997 million shares, amounting to 11.8 billion pesos. Losers led gainers at 149 to 54, while 42 shares were unchanged. Barbecued field rats are not everybody's idea of a tasty treat, but in Cambodia's rural Battambang province, they are popular as a cheap and quick snack. Take a look. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Maricar Velasco and I'm one with 25.